Gosh, when you think of the children she had in that hut.
I know. She brought up 3 kids that I know of.
That's right.
Before she got her house
and then she got a house down in Blainfield.
And this is the site of the McCartney hut. The wonderful place.
Look at it, Nettie.
What a view we had down that road. Not a tree in sight. Just facing Jimmy Robertson's and seeing all that lovely view.
Oh, Nettie. Think of the good times I had there.
To the front was a lounge, the wee sitting room, and the windows looked down there, and then you had the 2 bedrooms at the back, and the wee kitchenette was added on, it looked out that way. And then my father built, on this site, they built a big spare hut for all our pals. They would come out and see us and sleep on the floor. My mother never got to the cooker for falling over bodies, as she says. She said to my father, build them a hut. So all our pals slept in this staircase at the back. This was a family hut. The first huts were built in the 1930s on the Carbeth estate, which was owned by Mr. Alan Barnes Graham. He put down a centre pole and he says, now you'll take your 60 square feet. You get
60, 30 each way.
Did you pay for that piece of land, or how did it work? What was the legal?
Just a rent. It was just a ground rent. You never owned it.
There was a blacklisted joiner down our street, Donny Campbell, a big hefty guy who every weekend left Maryhill with a rucksack and went into the country. And we used to say, where does he go? He goes hiking, he goes to the country. Oh, the country. And I felt the freedom that this Donny fella represented is what I wanted some of it. So when we get the bikes, this boy Griffin said he'd hut at Carbeth, his parents and his grandparents. Why don't we all cycle out to the huts? And that became the mecca all summers, and the summers seemed to be longer, hotter. You know the story. We met loads of people who were men. We were boys, they were men, who had been in the army and various things and had decided that they no longer wanted to be part of society completely. That they would work as a wage slave, you know, till the weekend. And we called them weekenders. And they went to the country in their hordes.
My mother told me she was buying a hut at Carbeth. I knew Carbeth because I was a hiker anyway. And she brought me to this all ramshackle. Bit of wood, everything was, there was nothing right with it. But my mother loved the thing. She paid 50 quid for it. She thought it was a bargain, a beautiful bargain. A cottage in the country for £50. It's no longer become a hobby with me. It's become a way of life here. It's become a great escape, this place. I worked in an iron foundry, and when that horn went on a Friday, it was like letting a lion out of a cage.
And round any campfire, anywhere, guys would discuss all the issues, and I loved it, and it's left an indelible mark. I can actually go back, if I sit for 5 minutes, I can be sitting listening to the first time I heard any of the isms, vegetarianism, anarchism, communism. I can actually see the people who said it.
I mean, I got
3 and 4 or 5 grandkids come at a time, up from south of England. Now, where would they be in a tenement in Glasgow? Down here, I mean, I'm in that wee bedroom in there, which is untidy and you're not going to see. And my kids come in their pyjamas and they're out playing and I'm still in bed. I put their Wellingtons on because the grass is wet. And they would say, Grandad, saw a fox. Maybe it was a fox, maybe it was one of Arthur's skinny dogs. But it's a fox to them. But I don't know, it's just a nice feeling. And how do you explain a nice feeling, a warmth within you? I mean, I don't get all geared up, all excited when I'm going to Carbeth. But it's just there in an old coat, and I know it can come.
There you are, it's 2438.
So what was this like when you...
Well, this has all been rebuilt. This was all kind of ramshackle when we bought it. This part of the hut, original hut was here actually. You'll see it from the outside, the shape of the hut. And this actually was the Clydebank Cooperative Garage. And when I stripped these walls, I actually stripped all the walls and stripped all that. There was lots of carpets and that on the floor. We stripped it all. It was all one big room that. And there was actually a stamp on the timber, Clydebank Cooperative Garage stamp on the timber, like, you know. 2 families came up, actually, quite a group of them, like, you know, twice. And the first one said that they had been in here pre-war. And the entrance was out on the other side here, like, you know. The door was on the outside, and there was a fairly old lad, like, you know, must have been about the 70 mark, like, you know, and he said he was more or less brought up in this hut. And then the next family that came up just 2 or 3 weeks later, and they stated that they had been in here during all the war. And they had their ration books at the Blainfield, like, you know, for their sweeties and everything, and all their groceries and everything down in Blainfield, and they stayed up here, like, you know. Of course, they would come up for the Clydebank Blitz, you know, for the get away out the Blitz and the bombing and that, like.
When we come down from Glasgow in the bus had all the shutters down, you know, to keep the light out. And we got off the bus there, and my mum and my aunt and her family, we run up the field, and Clydebank was like daylight with the Blitz. You just saw flares and everything. And our hut was only just up the hill. The first in the field it was. And when we get in, my mum threw us into the bed, and that was us until the morning.
I think I would stay up here
yes,
if you were allowed to stay. Give up my house and come up here and stay without any bother.
You just need to look out the window, and actually it changes all the time.
Just looking at that loch itself, I mean,
ducks,
geese that
tame
come.
Geese,
the geese come in about February to have their young at the mill.
Yes, they're breeding actually.
I bought the hut in 1967, but before that, of course, I was in the Fellowship Camping Association field, which is just over the hill and down at the bottom there, so I'm not really all that far away from where I originally started. We decided that the Fellowship Camping Association would have to end, and I thought, well, I can't really live without Carbeth. And I started to look around for the hut. And I actually saw this one and thought, I would quite like that hut. But, you know, it was just a sort of dream. I say, I've got a hut at Carbeth. And when they come out, you know, they go, oh, we didn't think it would be like this. I don't know what they think. I've lived in a garden shed or something, you know.
There's a glimmer that's hanging out over the sky, down in the station. There's a bustle of conversation tonight. They took her the
Oh my God, you have to change that back.
Well, we were both pregnant at the same time.
You've never changed.
Oh, right.
There was a wee guy used to, I think he came from Drumchapel or somewhere, but I think he thought he came from Sydney, you know. He had a hat with cork.
Oh,
And he used to go on my old cover and all that. For Drumchapel. And see where the stag's head is there? There was a big, that used to be a big open fire. And he used to come in and throw the hat off to that stag. See the times I took it out of the fire, I never had the hat. Went into the fire, putting it out and getting it back, you know.
So come on, you look at company. Take a walk down Cinder Street. Come on, you look at company. Take a walk down Cinder Street.
I mean, you came from the town and you came to this marvellous place, and you go in come on a Saturday afternoon, you would be playing the music, making your tea. If it was warm enough, you'd be sitting outside for your tea. If it wasn't, you had a lovely wood fire burning.
No, Carbeth was only home. Many of us got. And they came here because it was cheap and it was available and it was lovely. And it was an atmosphere, a great atmosphere, belonging.
if somebody needed help, you helped them. If somebody did you a favour, you didn't call on that person to return the favour. You just did a favour for someone else.
And then you were as happy as Larry, and you run all that mile home, through the fields and over the burn, and no problem. It's not like the new. I'm feared to let my grandmines out now, you know. But this was a beautiful life.
Once the kids had their day, the parents used to sit and have a good old sing-song at night.
They talk of a steel fire in a furnace without any fire, of the hammered hearts of the families and the hot sweat memories. There's a candle burning tonight.
I think Barnes Graham really wanted to do something for the people in Glasgow. You know, it was a time, well, it was a depression to start with, and all the tenements, you know, and I mean, no really facilities in the tenements, you know, big families. And it gave them a chance, the people who were that minded, that they liked the country, gave them a chance to get out to country. And it was cheap. I mean, it was a cheap holiday, you know, once said the initial cost of the hut. I mean, the rents were cheap.
I think he was genuinely interested in providing a place where people from Glasgow could get away from Glasgow, from the smog, from the filth, from the dirt, and enjoy the country air. And he was genuinely interested in the people.
I really don't know why, because he was old school and the peasants. And yet he must have been quite far-sighted in doing that. But then, again, the land was of no use for anything else. You can't even graze on the land here. It's so bad.
Was he a socialist?
Well, I don't think he would be a socialist. No, but I think he would. I think he was a caring man.
Lots of people have asked that in the past. Nowadays he would be conservative, but perhaps a left-wing conservative.
My husband was a twin, and his twin, Donald, was an amateur photographer. He was really good. I mean, he was a cooperative camera club and all that, you know. And he decided he would take a photo. Now, the best, they always liked that photo from Carbeth House over Carbeth Loch. And Donald was you need to set up his tripod. You know, I mean, he was really doing it professionally. He set the tripod up and the slides and all that. And Mr. Barnes Graham came out and he says, "What are you doing there, my man?" And Donald says, "I'm taking a picture of the loch. You're not allowed to. This is my land. You're not allowed to photograph in my land." Now he says, "If you ask me, I may give you my permission. So Donald said, Mr. Barnes-Graham, can I take a photo of your loch? Certainly, certainly. And come up here, I'll show you a better place. Up the hill. He took him up the hill to take the photo. I really liked old Mr. Barnes-Graham. One of the times Alice had the measles, and he must have known, and he was kind of terrified at catching diseases, you know, when he got older. And he stood up the hill a bit there, and he shouted down, Mrs. McGregor, how is the boy? The boy was about a year and a half. How is the boy? I said, he's fine, he's got the measles. I know. And he says, you stay there, don't come near me. He says, I'll lay the eggs there and wait till I go away and then come up and get the eggs.
Big Tom and Robert had a hut at the back, and they were out there, the army sent them out to the country, you know, live in the country, keep away, because they had TB in the lungs. So that was them out in the country. Well, everybody knew why the boys were there. And Tom was going out with one of the maids from old Graham's place. And of course he went to the door to see if she was ready. And it was Graham that came to the door, and he says, you get off my land, you stay away from me. You've got TB and I don't want this. I want my son to get my land. And Tom didn't know what the devil he was on about. We just found out that he wanted this, there's a clause in the law. I think it's 7 years, as a matter of fact. You have to live this 7 years for this to be legal. And he was the one TB. But Big Tom come back up that hill, and he was raging, and the tears was in his eyes. And I says, Tom, what happened to you? The language was blue. And he called him for everything. And I said, a bad old rascal saying that to you. I mean, we all know you've got it. When Tom left, I scalded all the cops.
You wouldn't have hurt his feelings.
You had to when you've got 3 kids round about. I don't mind giving the man a cup of tea, but we never away the boiling water within the cup. Forgive me, Tom, that dreadful thing I'm saying. You did the same.
Far distant, far distant, lies fires the brave. Nature stone memorial shall hallow his grave. For his bones they lie scattered on the rude soil of Spain. Young Jamie Foyers in battle slain. He's gone frae the shipyard that stands on the Clyde. His hammer lies idle, his tools laid aside.
In the 30s, volunteers from all over the world went to Spain to defend the people from a fascist uprising in the Spanish Civil War.
To fight by the side of the people of Spain.
Actually, we came out here before the Spanish War, and the other 4 chaps that was in the hut with my father, there was only 5 huts here at the time, and the chaps that were in the hut along with my father were all single. My father was the only one married, and they all went to the Spanish War except my father, because he was married and had a family.
There was nae his equal at work or at play. He was strong and dying till his dying day. He was grand at the football, at the dance he was brought. Young Jamie Foyers was the floor of them all.
One got killed and one was wounded, lost a leg, and when he came back, the chap that was killed, his father planted a tree as a memorial, you know, that was there up to a few years back. It was just in memory of the boys killed it. I think it was Jarama.
This is a wee poem I wrote about my feelings about Carbeth. The hut, Carbeth, off-road drive from my Glasgow home, a million miles from city life. Past the inn in the Drummond Road, fields where young men camped before going to war. Turn along the Colt Road. The big hut's gone where we used to dance. Wend my way up Froggy Lane. Park at the well. That's handy. Light the fire and make the tea. Remembering young men. And you at Carbeth. Tommy Flynn. Killed fighting fascism in Spain. One of the few Churchill ignored. John Lyons. Socialist. Communist. Fighter for justice. Aye. Even when he was past 80. And Billy Quinn. Gifted musician and Pied Piper. Taught the Waynes true values in life and died too young. There's no mournful thoughts I hae. Just been glad on you such men. Soon, the grandmains will visit. English accents will ring the hills. Mere memories will be made in the huts at Carbeth.
Coming through the shipyard, took off his working clothes. Oh, I mind the time wheel in the long summer's days. He said, thinking along, lassie, but I'll come back again. Young Jamie Foyers in battle slain.
Memory plays tricks on everyone. I mean, come on, you know that very, very well. If we look back on the weather, what it was like in the past, it was always drier and hotter than it is today. And there may well be some justification to saying the weather was better, but I don't think it was that better.
Well, that's one memory of Carbeth. I lost my virginity in a wee tent out there. On a Sunday afternoon, and the sun was shining. I'll tell you my name, I'm not telling you her name. But another wee story I'd like to tell you.
Well, Nettie, that was Mrs. Morrison's hut there, 131.
Was it always that size, Minnie?
No, that's another extension. That was the main bit there.
My God,
No, I mean, we were really friendly with the Morrisons.
What a beautiful roof, look at that.
And ours was just down here. They were practically parallel. I'll be able to pick it out with that.
I'm going to have a slide.
Oh. Ours was just in there, along there. When my husband's father died and Bill came back from the war, well, it was a small hut. And of course, he had big plans because we couldn't get a house. And he says, I'll build you a good place to stay. So we started to collect things together, you know. Well, you just couldn't get any bricks for the founds. There were no bricks. But there was maybe odd bricks left, say, from Anderson shelters and all these kind of things after the war. There was always odd bricks about. So he used to tell everybody that came out, you're not getting a cup of tea unless you bring out a brick. And I remember my wee mother. She used to come out, 4 bricks and a brown... I mean, then when you get a parcel, it was always brown paper and string, you know, a wee tying handle. And we would be... I said, get my mummy coming. Me, I've got my bricks, she would say. And she would tell everybody it was coming out, they're no use singing out, she'll not get you a cup of tea unless you got a brick. Mr. Barnes gave him double the rents, and my husband objected to this because we didn't have any amenities, there was no water. But he said he was going to put the water in. But, I mean, the water was, we were always getting promised this, so he said, well, I'm not paying it till the water goes in. And, well, the water still wasn't in. And, well, we got 1 or 2 things to go off and all that. But there was a court case, and we lost it. Just dismantled it. And then Bill says to hang, he just matched it. So when my husband died 2 years ago, I didn't know about it at the time, but my son mentioned to me this day, he says, you know, Mum, he says, I've got Dad's ashes, he says, and I didn't know what you wanted done with them. So I says, well, there's only one place we can put them, Douglas, and that's just at Carbeth. So that's what we did. although I'm standing here and I feel sad about the huts, I just feel, well, Phil's here somewhere, you know. And I hope he hears me and he's pleased with what I've said today. You don't give me a row.
10 years ago I sold it. By that time all my family had died and I didn't like the idea of sitting with these ghosts. Every time I moved my father would say something. But anyway, it was too many memories to sit here yourself, you know. So I sold it and bought a caravan and I'm now sitting at Sea Mill and very happy to be there.
I'm afraid we're a dying breed.
And I long, and I wonder if it's nostalgia, I longed for these days when everybody was genuinely facing the one way and wanting to build a better world. And it wasn't simplistic. It's not me giving round the campfire nostalgia. There were heated arguments about what direction to go, but in a comradely manner.
Say come, o ye, a time we freedom, never heed what the hoodies croak for doon. In your house, or the bairns o' Wadham will find bread, barley, brie and painted room. One McLean meets where springs in spring burn, all the roses and geens will turn to bloom. And a black lad free on Nyanga dings the fell gallows o' the burgers doon.
We were only allowed to stay here 2 weeks in the year, plus every weekend. This lady came up this day, and here she hadn't been well, and her friend had given her the hut for the fortnight, given her the keys. So she's coming up from Carbeth and she's carrying this big suitcase, and old Mr. Barnes Graham was walking. You know, he had always his walking stick, and he was a smart man, tall, very, very good-looking man, and he said to her, "Let me carry your bags. Come on," he says, "I'll help you up the hill with your bags." So he says, "Where are you going?" She says, "I'm going up," she says, "to my friend's hut." She says, "But you know what she said?" She says, "I have to watch." She says, "The old Barney doesn't see me." And he says, "Put down the case." He says, "Well," he says, "have a good holiday and tell her the old Barney carries your case up the hill."